Hi, everyone. It's Steve Politi from NJ Advanced Media. This week's Rutgers Rant is brought to you by the New Brunswick Development Corporation. A big thank you to our sponsor and to all of our listeners for the continued support. Now let's get to the show.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politi and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start shopping.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the rant. It's gonna be quite a rant. I can tell you that much. We sketched out a show, figuring we'd spend most of the time here talking about how bad Rutgers was offensively against Nebraska. It turns out Greg Schiano reached the same conclusion, not surprisingly. Fired Sean Gleeson on Sunday. I wrote on Friday night that it was a matter of time before Schiano pinned this all on Gleason. I did not, however, think it would be 48 hours later. Fonseca, when that text email went out, were you as surprised as I was? I get it that it shouldn't have been surprising given how bad the offenses play, but still, this is not a typical college football move.
Yeah, I think if you put the pieces back together, it all makes sense. It's the bye week, so it's a good time. Schiano seemed to have hinted at possibly doing it on Friday. You know, the wording he used was very similar to what he said earlier in the season, but you could kind of piece together that's what he was looking at based on what he said. But in the moment, no, I was mildly surprised. Do I think it's the right move? I haven't really gotten to that point yet in my thought process through the whole thing, but I think you wrote this. This is big boy football. This is what big boy football programs do. This is an SEC level move. And whether it'll result in some SEC level results, I'm not too sure yet. But I think he felt like he had to do it. Had to show some people that he's still, paying attention, I guess, because the offense was really that bad. And I guess we'll see where it goes with Nunzio Part 2.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. And I guess we're going to discover pretty quick, Pat, how much of this was actually Gleason's fault. And again, we don't let them make excuses because, I guess we mentioned big time college football, but there was an excuse. Like you have one quarterback who has a broken hand, one quarterback who has a bad leg, bad wheel. You're left with your third string quarterback who's clearly, hey, I don't want to pile on the kid, but not playing at a Big Ten level. I mean, what are your thoughts? How much of this do you pin on Sean Gleeson?
I think you're exactly right. I have a hard time pinning this all on Gleason because how many teams would be successful with their third string quarterback? That's something I keep coming back to. Maybe the Ohio States or Alabamas of the world where their third string is as good as everybody else, but Rutgers is clearly not in a position where, Evan Simon is going to be making plays that are game changers. So I feel like it was bad timing for Gleason. But you also just saw so much all the creativity was gone. Yeah. Everything was falling apart, and it was just time. But I do feel like the chips were stacked against them in a little bit from the injury standpoint. Yeah,
and it's interesting. I wonder, how much of that game just was it had to be the final straw, and it was, the first half only 13 points. You had it in your film review. Fonseca, it should have been 24, but just beyond that, it's just. You just got the sense and the frustration of watching, first of all, the refusal to let Sam Brown win this game for you when you knew you weren't going to have a good passing day. Nebraska's terrible defensively. It's just the personnel stuff is enough to make you, rip your hair out. And then the real thing there, having Evan Simon drop back and throw that pass on second and long in a situation where you're looking, okay, if we punt here, we've got the best punter in the nation. If we punt here and pin them back, I guess if you lose to Nebraska, if they drive 75 yards, it's different when they drive 25 yards, right? Do you think this final game, Fonseca, he just couldn't deal with it anymore after that?
He said it wasn't, right? He said it was an accumulation of things, but I have to think that watching your team get the ball back at the 9-yard line and kick a field goal because you gained 2 yards on 3 plays. The first play, which is a handoff to Johnny Langan as a running back. I mean, that I can't imagine watching that and not thinking, what the hell are we doing? That's the biggest wasted thing. I think that one drive was an omen of things to come. That was my biggest issue. I would have liked to seen Sam Brown get the ball more, sure. But you have to feed the kid the ball there when he's carrying 4 yards. He's getting 4 yards to carry. You got to give him the ball. Yeah. I do think that the fact that they did this against one of the worst off defenses in the country, I get it. Mickey Joseph is different than Scott Frost. Maybe they're playing a little harder for him than they did Scott Frost. But Rutgers marched down the field on that first drive. I do think that Schiano repeatedly mentioning complementary football in his press conference.
Yeah.
So here's what it means. It means the defense played really, really, really well against Nebraska.
Right.
They gave up 13 points and they couldn't beat them because the offense wasn't good enough. The offense wasn't complementing the defense. The offense couldn't score enough points to win in a game that the defense played lights out. So that's what he meant.
All right. So now we get Nunzio 2.0. It's like I wrote in my column that Nunzio's office is just a glass case that they can break in case of an emergency. Obviously, he was the guy who replaced Chris Ash as interim coach and offensive coordinator then. Different situations. Certainly, in a lot of ways, this is a much more stable environment than it was then, to put it mildly. He has a chance to win this game, to win this job. That's what Schiano said. He doesn't have to build an offense around Johnny Langan. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I mean, Pat, you know him better than anybody, better than us. You covered him when he was a high school coach. I mean, what do you think we can expect from Nunzio as offensive coordinator for six games this year?
I think what Greg said about Nunzio is absolutely right. That he's creative. He has done a great job developing quarterbacks. I mean, you can go through his list of his resume of high school quarterbacks, starting at Don Bosco with Mike Teal being the first. Tanner McAvoy was one of his better ones at Bergen Catholic. Jared Guarantano. Like Schiano said, he has put some guys in the NFL, but Nunzio is a guy that adapts. And I think that's the best thing. I go back to the season where Bergen Catholic had Guarantano, who was the best quarterback in New Jersey at the time, and he broke his wrist. So he put in a 5'8" quarterback who was their wide receiver to just kind of run and gun and do whatever he could to win games. Corey Garn was his name. I don't know how I remember that. That was like 2014. But Nunzio is very able to adapt. And then after that Corey Garn thing, the year later, it turned over to a young sophomore named Johnny Langan. And once again, Bergen Catholic's offense adapted again to make Johnny Langan the most effective quarterback he could be as a runner and, still be an effective passer as well. So I think adaptability is what Schiano's looking for from Nunzio. And at this point, I'm pretty certain that Nunzio understands where the strengths of this team is. Right. We have a good running game. It doesn't have to be this big spread and move people around and all these things. So I think Nunzio is just going to get back to the basics and do what's best.
It's funny. And so many things about this surprised me. Another thing that really surprised me, and it shouldn't have, but it did surprise me, is when Greg Schiano said that this was about winning games this year, which of course, when you think about it, he's got to win games. But in some ways that mission could go against what I think is now the purpose of this year, is to get a quarterback ready for beyond 2022. It's like, am I wrong in thinking that? I mean, is Gavin Wimsatt both the best idea to win now? Certainly don't think he is. And will Nunzio trying to win now get us to a point where we get to the year and we still don't know if he's the guy?
That's the conundrum they're facing, right? We don't know who will be healthy for Indiana and moving forward, right? But I kind of played this through my post this morning. Let's say they're all healthy. If you want to win now, you play Noah Vedral. If you want to win in the future and develop your quarterback, you play Gavin Wimsatt. Those are obviously two conflicting issues. And you could do, I guess, what they were planning to do entering the season and mixing and matching quarterbacks, playing Wimsatt sometimes, playing Vedral other times, but you don't really gain anything on either way. You're losing an edge in winning and you're stunting his development. So I think they got to go all in on one philosophy, in my opinion. To me, I think the easy choice is playing Gavin Wimsatt. Ride with Gavin Wimsatt, ride him through his mistakes, because the path to a bowl game is closed. You lose to Nebraska, you're not going to make a bowl game. It's just not going to happen. So in my view, you play Wimsatt, let him learn, give him the reps, get him the experience. Again, assuming he gets back and healthy, because we never know when these things are going to work, how long he's going to be out. But if he's back and healthy, ride the kid, let him develop, because you need to know by the end of the year, if you have a quarterback, you need to know in 2023, is Gavin Wimsatt going to be the guy? Because I think we've all figured out at this point that it's not going to be Evan Simon probably, and Noah Vedral has no more years after this. So that's really the only question mark left. It
certainly can't be what it was against Nebraska, which was obviously one of the more dysfunctional, weird things I've seen in the football field. And the fans were just the number of emails I got in text during the game was like, what are they doing with the quarterback rotation? I mean, it was sort of inexplicable if you didn't know. And a lot of people didn't know what was wrong with Noah Vedral. He could grip the football sometimes, but he didn't have the stamina and his hand got tired. So they would put in Evan Simon and then they bring back Vedral, and then Vedral could throw a pass. And then he threw a couple passes so you could tell something was wrong. It was just like, I mean, we don't have to really relive this game. I don't think fans want to relive it, but it was one of the worst losses I've seen in that stadium. And I get it. I've seen some lopsided ones where Rutgers was just not competitive, but it's been a long time since I've seen a game where I thought, all right, well, Rutgers is the better team here, and they're blowing this. I mean, that was just something that can't happen again. I don't know what my point here is, but if either of you want to elaborate, please have at it.
I'll just elaborate on Brian's point a little bit. You can do both. You can develop Wimsatt and still try to be competitive. I don't think you're necessarily taking a huge step back by playing Gavin Wimsatt over Vedral. Or I think that was just one thing to elaborate on. You can develop him and still try to be competitive, because the gap between Vedral and Wimsatt isn't that great, right? It's not like you're putting out this superstar over a rookie. So I think you can do both.
That's a great point, and they're going to have to do both. All right, let's dive into true or false. I have some good topics for you here. Let's go. All right, true or false? Sean Gleeson is the fall guy for Greg Schiano's failures. Wow. Woof. Fonseca, true or false?
Wow. Jesus Christ, throwing a fastball right down the. Oh my God.
If only the Mets had a fastball like that last night. Boom.
Oh baby.
Wow.
I'll go false, though I can see how one could argue that.
Pat?
Wow. I think Gleason wrote his own script, so I'm gonna say false, I guess, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go false too. I think there are a lot of things that Sean Gleeson did wrong here. All right, true or false? Greg Schiano is right. Rutgers can win several more games this season. Fonseca, you know the schedule. What do you think?
I mean, they can, right? Will they? No. So I will go with. I think the games they could win of the last 6 is 2. So whatever that means, I guess false.
Okay, Pat.
They can win some games just based on defense and special teams alone. Against Indiana being one of them, maybe.
Right. Okay. So that's a true. Yeah, I guess when you put it that way, you've talked me into it. I get, but I do agree with that. If you put the over under on 1.5, I would take the over. But if it was anything more than that, I'm not sure I would. True or false? Rutgers should go back to a pro style offense that it had success with in Schiano 1.0. Fonseca, are we running the wrong offense here? Not that I really know what it is anymore, but are we running the wrong offense here?
I don't think it's a scheme that's exactly the biggest impediment. I think talent is. I'll go false.
Okay, Pat.
I'm going to go true, because when you want to run this spread up tempo offense, you need to have great receivers, a lot of speed, and I don't think Rutgers has any of that. So I think you do go back to a pro style offense where you can mash the ball and play complementary football on defense.
All right, that's a good one. I agree with Fonseca though that it's certainly not a system thing, so I'll go false. All right, true or false? If Gavin Wimsatt is healthy, he should start the rest of the way. Fonseca,
you should play every possible snap that's available. True.
Pat?
True.
I'm going to go false. And this is because this is going to sound wait. I think you give Noah Vedral the start against Indiana and say, this is your game. I mean, he's earned it. He's played the entire way. If his hand, I'll take a caveat. If his hand is good enough that he's not in the position where, he can actually throw. Look, he was really good in the first quarter. I don't know. They're still trying to win games. They could beat Indiana. I'm going to give him that start. After that, it's all the kid.
What if he wins?
All right, true. No, you disagree? Go ahead, tell me.
No, I'm saying, what if he wins that game?
If he wins that game, who do you got next? Minnesota? Maybe give another start. Yeah, I don't know.
We're already thinking too far ahead here with the Rutgers win. So give me the next one.
True or false? Poor officiating is the real reason Rutgers lost to Nebraska, because based on my inbox, clearly it was a bigger factor than we wrote about. What do you think? True or false? Fonseca?
False.
Pat?
False. But I did notice a lot of Twitter action that from respectable people that this is the same crew that also blew it the week before in whatever the Iowa game was.
I guess if we were to rank it, you watch it again, Brian. I guess if we could ranked it, the defensive holding penalty, thought that was a phantom call. The holding call that negated Brown's run, I thought it was a hold. I don't know, and I thought you were going to get flagged for that 15-yarder at the end just about every time. So
Yeah,
Go ahead.
the Kesson Abraham penalty was a penalty. I mean, the guy was out of bounds when he dragged him, threw him to the ground. The hold on the Iron Brown touchdown from Alamo was a hold. I can see why people are upset about the offensive pass interference on Sean Ryan on that big play. There was contact. He pushed him off a slight bit, but not any more contact than in any other normal interaction between a defensive back and a wide receiver. I don't think that penalty is the reason they lost the game, though. To scapegoat the referees Rutgers should have scored more than 13 points on offense.
All right. The final one, true or false? The Rutgers sellout was totally legitimate, and we should stop being such stick in the mud. True or false?
False.
You weren't there. I can let you off the hook unless you want to just answer anyway.
No, you go. I only saw your pictures.
It's false. I got a little bit of mini rant here because this happens like every week. They announced it could be a big crowd. We take a photo because it's a big, and fans don't realize how the stadium looks at kickoff is a big deal for Rutgers because they want to do videos. They had a drone ready for this game to do a cool thing with the lights lit up and everything when the team ran out. I mean, for social media, that's kind of the thing. And so you take a picture and there's 20,000 empty seats. Immediately, somebody will take a picture midway through the second quarter and send it to me. It's like, well, how do you like it now? And my response to that is like, all right, so there's like a 10-minute window where we can judge the crowd because by the third quarter, everyone has left the stadium. It doesn't matter what the score is. People have already left. It's like the only people who were in the building from start to finish were Nebraska fans. All right, there's my legitimate rant on that one. Get to the game, get there on time. Don't worry about what we tweet about it, and it wouldn't be a problem. So sick of it. And I get it. Again, you guys, the fans have gotten a bad rap this year. Greg Schiano among them for saying, well, the fans have got to learn. I understand why people are tired of being beaten down and they're sick of the criticism. But look, it's legitimate. People turn on the game. They see your sellout and they see that and they go, what are you talking about? I mean, it's true. I'm sorry.
Second consecutive sellout, Steve.
Second consecutive sellout.
They do it to themselves. You call it a sellout, and then you leave yourself open to these photos. I mean, you either don't call it a sellout or live with the consequences. Essentially,
the upper deck is a third full throughout the entire game. Absolutely, the student section is great. The rest of it filled in, but I mean, no one said maybe it's too windy up there. No one sits up there. I don't know, but if 50, I am extremely surprised if there were 53,000 people in the building. And I get that's not what a sellout is, but if there's anything more than 40,000, we'll have to see what this turnstile count is. But
it was pretty telling on TV too, because they showed the same clip of the student section like 30 or 40 times. It's just cascading down the student section, which was awesome. But it was like, yeah, of course, this is what they're going to show because half the stadium is empty. And you could see it when you kick the field goal or whatever in the opposite end zone.
Yeah, no, it's not a great look. All right. Any of the other things we've kind of talked about, most of these are right there already, I guess. The more game thing. I mean, you can make a point that Michigan State is a winnable game now. That's a program that's having some buyer's remorse with the head coach. Maryland they're just more talented, but again, you're right about this defense. It will keep them in these games. Is there an upset on the schedule if the offense gets Penn State an upsettable game win? Minnesota upsettable? It's on the road. I don't know.
Minnesota maybe. That's the only one I'd point to.
Right.
The Penn State Northwestern game was it's hard to judge because that was the rain and the monsoon was crazy, but Northwestern played them pretty tough with like in a defensive kind of game. So Rutgers generally plays Penn State pretty tough, and I don't think they're lighting up the scoreboard in any sense. So we'll see how Penn State plays Michigan this week.
Right. Yeah, there could be an element of the season on the line for that team. All right. Insider questions. As always, we had a bunch. I think we had close to 100 questions from our insiders. People have opinions on what's going on. And you know what we did? I don't know if you noticed this. Of course you noticed this. We started a Twitter account. Did you see that? We have the Rutgers Rant has a Twitter account. So I asked people for questions on the Rutgers Rant Twitter. I think we're up to like 130 followers. Look at that, huh? Not bad.
Let's go.
Going viral.
That would have been a good true or false. Was that a good idea? True or false? But here we go. The first one, and this out of the three ranters, this is from Kevin Fine. Out of the three ranters, what is everyone's surprise level? 1 being, I knew it was good. I knew it was happening last week, and 10 being, I was just leaving to go apple picking, which is very fun. I'm going to put myself at a 7. Where do you guys go for the surprises?
I was pretty surprised. I would say 7 because of what he said 2 weeks prior, that this guy is the perfect guy for the job. And
He did.
I
We
couldn't
should
have
known
more
that, actually.
confidence in him.
Fonseca, where are you on the surprise level?
Hey, Rutgers Rant listeners, it's Steve Politi from NJ Advance Media. We appreciate you supporting this podcast and the sponsors who help us continue doing it. This week's podcast is brought to you by the New Brunswick Development Corporation. If you listen to this show, you love Rutgers. And if you love Rutgers, you know the positive impact that DevCo has made on the campus and its community. We thank the New Brunswick Development Corporation for its continued support and for helping make this podcast possible. Now back to the show.
I'd say roughly 6 or 7. If it gives you any indication, there was a beer garden event in New Brunswick about a block away from my apartment, and I was about a beer and a half in when I saw the text. So,
man. Right. Next question. Is Greg Schiano on the hot seat, or maybe should he be? Wow, this is fire and brimstone. The answer, of course, is no to both. I think to both, certainly to both. He's not on the hot seat. It would take, I can't even imagine at what point we would get to Greg Schiano on the hot seat. We're not even in the same time zone as that. Yeah, it's just not. It'd have to be just a complete disaster. And it just, again, we talk about the SECization of this look at Wisconsin did, for example, moving on from a very successful coach quickly. Rutgers just ain't there yet. And it's not like they put the job out in the market and they're going to get, there's a reason why they needed him to come back. And none of those reasons have changed. And by the way, as rough as this has been at times, the long-term outlook really hasn't either. I mean, you've got to put your faith in that this was a hard rebuild and it's going to take a while. It's okay to criticize what's happening now in front of you, but yeah, hot seat is not the right word. All right, Politi, this is from old Mark from Piscataway. This was a long time coming, but Nunzio? We had many other offensive coaches. Why Nunzio? Isn't he the guy who had Langen finish the rest of the season after Ash was fired? Perhaps I'm wrong, but were none of the other offensive coaches in a position that they could have taken over? What do you think on that one, Fonseca? Is Nunzio the right guy?
Yeah, I'm not sure who else it would be. He has play calling experience in college football that 2019 year. I think it's a bit unfair to say that he forced Langen to be the quarterback, because that year Art Sikowski red shirts before the first game that they play together, and McLean Carter retires from football. So he only had Johnny Langen or Cole Snyder, who was an 18-year-old freshman, right? So he had to play Johnny Langen. I don't think he'll play Johnny Langen now unless he absolutely has to in a similar way. I mean, who else would they want? Who else is on staff that has play calling experience that they would want? Nobody comes to mind off the top of my head.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, it's not going to be Schiano. He's not calling his own plays. That's certainly not his thing. Yeah, I think that was, if you're going to make this move, he's the only guy. All right, Alex in Freehold wants to know some awkward and somewhat hostile coaching changes last offseason. Huh? Really? Okay. And now his number one guy is fired. Is working with Schiano difficult? Will this impact his ability to hire new coaches? I don't think there's any doubt that he's a demanding boss. But it's the coaching profession, and they're paying real well right now, right? I mean, so those are the two bigger things, I think. What do you guys think?
My understanding is that Schiano is a particularly demanding coach to work under. The results, the level that he gets these guys to, it is a job that can be a stepping stone for up and coming coaches. You see Joe Harris-Simiak having a tremendous season as the defensive coordinator in his first year. He's going to get some looks after this year. Not to say that he'll go after this year, but he'll get some looks because of the great job he's been doing. So it's kind of a balance of, yes, he's demanding, but he gets a lot out of it. So, but yeah, I'm sure, coaches talk, it's all fraternity. And I'm sure that if things are too demanding, that will be talked about and will weigh on future coaches' decisions. Sure.
But why has it been so long since Rutgers has had an offense? And is it because Schiano is just a defensive guy and that's how it's going to always be? Like, I just can't understand that question. And but
it was preceded him too. Ash didn't have an offense. I mean, this has been going on for years.
It is a death trap. You take this job, it is a death trap, because I mean, you went through the whole carousel of a new offensive coordinator every year. So it is a tough job.
And you thought I thought they had solved it with Gleason, and clearly that did not happen. All right. So along those lines, 2-part question: let's just call them nuns. What would nuns have to do to become a legitimate option for 2023? And way too early, but are there any good OC candidates out there? All right, take the first one, Pat. What do you think? What would you have to see to say, all right, there's the guy?
I was going to say Matt Rule just got fired. He would be a
Can
tremendous
you imagine that? Whoa, baby.
That would be about a $5 million payday. But what would Nunzio have to do? I just want to see some level of consistency that they showed at Boston College, where they were able to move the ball kind of effectively, get rid of this whole quarterback carousel thing, figure that out where we're done playing multiple quarterbacks. I'm fine with putting Langan in for a few plays to run the Wildcat or whatever, but I want to see Nunzio develop some level of consistency at quarterback and just stop this whole charade of switching. But in terms of wins or losses, it's hard to say. I mean, they couldn't win. They couldn't beat Nebraska. So that's for you to say, Politi, not for me.
And I will. I don't know if there's a number of wins or losses, but I would have to see Gavin Wimsatt suddenly look like the future. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see some development out of Wimsatt. I'd like to see some better statistics. I'm not saying they should be a top, half in the country offense, but getting out of the 120s would be nice in most categories. And offensive coordinator, I think Phil Longo, North Carolina OC, is the home run hire everyone's looking at. I don't know how likely that is, given that he's already making $950,000 and he's at a place that's 5-1 and ranked and heading in a good direction and recruiting well. And he has a 5-star quarterback. Yeah, Politi, you watch all their games. You obviously follow the Tar Heels, so he seems like a very, I would put that as considering all those factors, unlikely. And then Mark Whipple is a former Pitt offensive coordinator, now at Nebraska. Rutgers got to look at him on Friday night. I guess it depends on if Mickey Joseph stays at Nebraska and he chooses to keep Whipple, but that is an option as well. But I think we'll see kind of things unfold in the weeks coming here. I'm not sure that there's a clear-cut guy at this point.
How about Frank Signetti? Pitt, Rutgers experience. I mean, he didn't stay long, but I think that was just back when they weren't paying enough to keep guys. What do you think?
A good recruiter too.
Developed quarterbacks. Yeah, I don't know. Was Pitt a lateral? How would you view Pitt as a lateral? What are they paying their coordinators out there now? I don't know.
I'm sure Rutgers paid Sean Gleeson more. Rutgers paid Sean Gleeson more than I'm imagining Pitt is paying him. Now the question is Rutgers going to pay their next offensive coordinator $1 million again? Schiano kind of ducked the question when I asked him, is the pool going to be there again? That's also a big question we need to find out.
Yeah, good point. All right, this one's from the Twitterverse. A question from Jeff Steer on Twitter. True or false? The Nebraska loss will be looked back on as a turning point for the program, like the Illinois loss in the 2005 opener. Fascinating. That's when we started chopping wood. If you guys don't remember, it's been 17 years of wood chopping since that Illinois loss. My sense is it's a bit different. That team was ready to take the next step and just lost a bad game. I don't think this team is quite on that level. What do you think, Pat? Am I wrong here? Is this a turning point game?
If you start winning, then yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
But I don't think it is. I don't think they have the gusto to kind of turn it around like that. So, all
right, this is good. Here, good. I like this one. Perhaps off topic, a little off topic, but can Fonseca walk through how he votes for the AP poll? Log at it. Can you walk through why you do it? No. Curious to see what the thought process is for his rankings and what the logistics are. Like, when are they due by? How do you even submit them? That's a good question.
Okay, so logistically, the AP has a back-end website that all the voters have access to. I log in. They're due at 11 a.m. on Sunday, which is nowhere near enough time to do any real comprehensive look through the entire college football landscape, because most Saturdays I spend the entire day watching the Rutgers game, covering the Rutgers game, writing about the Rutgers game, and then doing coverage for the following day. So by the time I wrap around to find out what happened the rest of the day, it's 10 o'clock. I can't rewatch all the games, obviously. So I just look at results. I look at who played who I compare, strength of schedule, compare wins and losses, and kind of just figure out from there, see what the consensus is and kind of where I differ and things like that. Yeah, it's a fun little exercise that keeps me paying attention to the grander scheme of college football. And to this topic, Rutgers is now, with Illinois becoming number 24 this week, Rutgers now has the longest drought of Power 5 teams without entering the AP poll. Rutgers has not been ranked since November of 2012. So almost 10 years. Yes.
Goodness gracious.
They're going to reach 10 years, barring an unbelievable month ahead, which I don't think any of us foresee. So I guess what's the over-under on when they will get ranked? When do you guys think it's going to happen? I can't imagine it'll happen within the next year or two. What do you guys think?
Not without being able to see the schedule. Yeah, the problem is when you put Ohio State early on, that's just never going to be, if you can let me map out a schedule next year where they have 3 non-conference wins and start with get Indiana early. But even then, I think it's going to be a few years before they have to get to a bowl first, right? Pat,
Yeah,
you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. The other streak that be a perk of being a stay-at-home reporter these days is that I get to watch College Game Day. And on game day this week, they announced that Rutgers is the only FBS school that's never hosted game day in either football or basketball. The only one.
That's it's an incredible stat. Power 5, like
Power 5.
wow. Oh my goodness. And
And
I
there
guess,
was
Let's get
was a
it
real
here
back
next
and
week for
forth.
Indiana.
It was
Come
a real
on.
back and forth.
I guess so basketball we agree has a much higher chance of getting that than
Yeah.
football.
There were like 6 football schools that have never had it, but of those 6, 5 have had it for basketball. Rutgers is the only one that hasn't had
Is it bad that I didn't know there was one for basketball?
it. Yeah.
All right, a couple more. Just why do the students leave a close game so early? Do all the keg parties end that early? Brandon from Branchburg wants to know. As 2 former students, I mean, it just seems like everyone leaves early. It's like a 1-point game. I was amazed by that. I guess that even Iowa was at one point was a 2-possession game. And everyone's there's just what's the problem?
It's just no excitement, right? Like there's just no
Why
excitement
come
on the
if you're not going to
field.
watch the end? What do you?
What would you
I
rather
think
do,
they-
Steve? Watch
What would I rather do?
what would you rather watch? That offense play another 30 minutes or get to College Ave in time to go out, have some beers, see some people that you want to see, and hang out? I think, listen, if I wasn't paid to be at that game, I'm not sure I would have stayed the whole time either.
I'm 50 years old. I just want to go home, sit in the dark room, and crossword puzzle. I don't want to go anywhere. But I see your point. Yes, I guess it makes a difference if you've got someplace to go. But still, I mean, it's just And it really to the point. And this is funny. Like you laugh. Like so during the blackout, Nebraska fans were wearing red, so you could see them at the beginning of the game. All the Nebraska fans were there, and then at the end of the game, and this is a fan base that absolutely should have given up. I mean, the team stinks. They fired the coach. You're traveling all the way to New Jersey. You could have get a refund on your airline, go someplace tropical. I don't know. So
And at the end of the game,
rant on this.
At the end of the game, everyone's walking out, and the only people left are Nebraska fans chanting, "Go Big Red, go Big
It is
Red."
something else.
It was a tough scene at the end of that game for Rutgers for sure.
Not as bad as the time when the Michigan the Rutgers band was playing the Michigan fight song at the end of the 78-0 loss. That was tough. That was a tough one. All right. One final one I'm going to put in here because someone wants to know. It's time to bring out our secret good luck charm to turn this thing around. Where is Sarge? Stick him on the sideline and Rutgers Nation will rally. I didn't realize that people thought Sarge is a good luck charm. I mean, my God, that guy has been practically a black cloud. Wow. All right. We can try that. Stick him on the sideline. What do you think?
Listen, nothing else is working, so might as well.
I could imagine if Schiano's standing there at the sideline getting ready for the game and he looks over and sees Sarge be the end of him.
Brian, what was the great media scrum early on? Maybe it was training camp. One of the reporters asked, "Hey, I just got a text from Sarge. He wants to know who's going to be the starting quarterback." And Schiano says, "Tell Sarge to get back to some hospital or something."
Yes, exactly. That was Tom Canavan at the end of our Wednesday lightning session. Try to throw in an extra question, say, "Hey, I just got a text from Sarge," and Schiano had the quick one-liner.
Beautiful. We miss you, Sarge. All right, let's move on. Thanks for all the great questions. I'm sorry we couldn't possibly get to them all, but it was fun. All right, we don't have any predictions. Obviously, we didn't have a game. We don't have a game to predict. We'll do Indiana next week. But Fonseca did correctly take the points with Rutgers, so you won that pick. Congratulations! Right?
Thank you.
Nice job. So now you're in first place. We're chasing you. So I'll let you go first. In the mid-season prediction, we have 6 games left. Very simply, how many games will this team win? What do you think?
I will stick to my preseason win total. I believe I had 4. I think they beat
You had
Indiana.
3. You thought you had 3. You had 4.
Now I don't know. Now I'm confused. Well, in any event, I will go with one more win. I think they beat Indiana, and I think they go over the rest of the way.
Pat?
I'm going 2 with one upset. And they beat Indiana and they upset Penn State.
Great God, really? Wow, that would save. There you go. That would save the season, right? That would save the season.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely. It's been building. It's been building.
It's a good one. All right. I'm going to go one as well, and I don't even know if it's Indiana. There's so many uncertainties this year, but it's I'm stuck with one. It would also get me to 4 wins this year, which is what I thought it would be when we went into it. I didn't think it would look like this. All right, other thoughts? What else do we got? Field hockey with a big win. Am I inventing that? I just say that every week, whether or not I've actually looked it up. But I think they had a big win.
Yes, they beat Northwestern, who's I believe ranked number three. Yes, there you go. And this is the same Northwestern team they upset, I believe, in the Big Ten tournament last year before winning that title. So Rutgers should play Northwestern every week, if you ask me. And that's all I have for Olympic sports. But men's basketball media day starts tomorrow.
That's right.
The season is quickly approaching.
Our listeners probably do not realize this, but you were sitting in the lobby of a Fairfield Inn recording this in Minneapolis. So what do we expect from Big Ten Media? What are the big storylines at Big Ten Media Day?
Yes, I am in a Fairfield Marriott lobby. The people here were very nice enough to turn down the radio so I can speak into my microphone. They get to listen to the Rutgers Rant without subscribing. So good for them. I am looking forward to talking to Caleb McConnell about why he decided to come back and what he worked on over the summer. He spent a lot of time back home in Jacksonville working on his offensive game, just getting into the nitty gritty with him on that. I'm interested in talking to people about what they think about Cliff Omori. How good can he be? I think everyone thinks he'll have a big year. He made the first team All Big Ten preseason predictions in the unofficial poll. I voted for him first team. I honestly don't know how he wasn't a unanimous first team pick. I think he can have a big year. I'm curious to see what other people expect out of him. And the big league wide thing is that no one really knows who's the favorite. There's no like bona fide certified favorite to win the league. Everyone's kind of picking Indiana because they bring back the most dudes. But who knows whether Indiana will finally put together an actual good season. So yeah, just a lot of exciting things heading into the hardwood starting in less than a month. We're less than a month away from basketball, fellas. Can you feel the excitement in the air?
Yes, I can.
Can you feel the excitement, Brian?
I am buzzing.
I could tell.
All right, let's log off on that happy note. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to Devco as always. We've got a big show coming up next week before the Indiana game, and we'll talk some more football. Hopefully we'll meet with Nunzio Campanile before then. So signing off. Thanks again.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at NJ.com/insider.
You haven't heard enough from me yet, huh? Steve Politi here for one last thank you to this episode's sponsor, New Brunswick Development Corporation, and to listeners like you who make it all the way to the end of the show. We'll see you again soon.